Okay, one of the toughest parts is that we've learned how to solve these quadratic equations with multiple methods, and next week we're going to learn an even new one as well. So far we have factoring, square roots, and completing the square. We did also graph, and we're going to talk more about graphing as we move through this class. But for right now, those are the three ways that we're going to be talking about it for this lesson. So factoring. Factoring works when, first of all, you can factor it, and also choose ones that are kind of easier factoring ones if possible. Square roots only work if you have an isolated squared term. So you have just the squared by itself. You have a squared by itself, so I can square root. If there's other stuff around and you square root, it's going to cause a lot more trouble. All right, so if you can isolate the squared term, then it's a good one for taking the square root. Completing the square, kind of at this point, is going to be our catch. It works with a equals 1. Right, we have only talked about that so far, but it's kind of our catch if you can't do the other two options. Okay, so looking at this, I see that I've got an isolated squared term. So I would say that we're going to use square roots. And my justification for that is that we have an isolated squared term. Isolated means it's by itself. I don't have like 2 plus. I don't have another plus x. Like here I have a plus x. I can't get the x squared kind of by itself without that x being there. Okay, you have an isolated squared term equals a number. So I'm going to square root both sides, and I end up with x minus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 25, which is 5. That creates our two equations. X minus 3 equals 5, and x minus 3 equals negative 5. Add 3 to both sides, I get x equals 8. Add 3 to both sides, I get x equals negative 2. Okay? All right, the next one, square roots isn't going to work because I have this x term. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to isolate the x squared, all right, and not take the square root of an x, which is going to lead us down icky roads. All right, so the next thing I have to think of is, can I factor? Doesn't have something in the front, right? No a, if the a equals 1, so this would be an easy factor. So let's see if we can do that. What multiplies to 4 adds to 5? Oh, there's something that we can do with that. So I'm going to say this is a factor. And this is because this is based on our chart, our easy factoring. Right? So what multiplies to 4 and adds to 5? 4 and 1. Now remember that we're solving now, so you can't stop there. You have to set each of these equations equal to 0. Subtract 4 from both sides, and you get x equals negative 4. On this one, you take x plus 1 equals 0, subtract 1 from both sides, and you get x equals negative 1. All right, on the next one, it's kind of a mix, all right? So I would say that what most of you are going to probably write down is that you're going to factor because it's an easy factor. But what you also notice is that it actually is a perfect square as well, perfect square trinomial. So it's kind of like what we did up here. So what multiplies to 9 and adds to negative 6 is negative 3 and negative 3, which is the same as negative 3 squared, right? So or x minus 3 squared. Right, so it's the same as that right there. So I could take the square root, or I can also just say that x minus 3 equals 0, and there's another x minus 3 equals 0. So my answer is just one spot there. Now I do want you guys to think about what the graph will look like then. Here it's only going to hit the x-axis in one spot, where here it's going to cross the x-axis in both of these spots and both of those spots. So kind of picture what the graph is going to look like. That's going to make your life much easier as you go through to be able to connect those pieces together. All right, so for the last one, looks like it would be a factor problem, but let's see. What multiplies to negative 8 and adds to negative 10? There's nothing there. So we're going to have to complete the square. right? And it's really because you can't factor or use square roots. Okay, so just like we did up above, we're gonna get a spot so that we can add something on both sides. Sorry, I ran into the explanation a little bit there. So now I'm gonna take -10 over 2 squared, which is 25 on both sides. Okay, on this side I get x minus 5 squared. Notice that this is a subtraction because I'm supposed to add to -10. All right, up here we're going to a +6, so it's a plus. All right, this gives me 33 square root both sides, and I get x minus 5 equals plus or minus square root of 33. Notice that there are no perfect squares that go into 33. You get 3 and 11, which become prime numbers, so there's nothing that's a perfect square that goes in there. So I can't simplify any further. You guys are pretty good with picking out when you can do that and when you can't, so keep up the good work on that. Add 5 to both sides and you get 5 plus square root 33 and 5 minus square root 33. Okay. All right, you guys have some homework to work on big ideas and to just get some review. And if you need help, please make sure that you are asking.